Hi Niranjan, this is Anand. So first of all, very warm welcome to our session.
Thanks, Anand. Thank you
For
so much. I know you're calling me, but I was in the board meeting, could not take the call. I'm so sorry for that, and sorry for the delay.
no problem. So for everybody's benefit, I would like to introduce you first. So hello guys, Mr. Niranjan Ramakrishnan is a group vice president, digital, Lexia Dental. Niranjan has over 2 decades of experience in healthcare IT domain and demonstrated large-scale projects in Indian and global healthcare technology. He is also leading the innovation and digital enterprise initiatives of Kaveri Hospital Group, Chennai, and rest of the Tamil Nadu. Prior to this, he was leading IT initiatives in Sri Gangaram Hospital, New Delhi. So, Niranjan, you can start.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Anand, can you give me a very quick, maybe 30-second intro about who are the audience that I'm going to be talking to?
Niranjan, we have a mix of audience. We have people, mostly some of them are BAs, some of them are students, and some of them are a bit higher level at manager level as well. So we have a mix of audience, and we are all very curious about RPA.
Sure. And how much time I have approximately?
So you have about till 9 o'clock, 9:10, I guess.
Okay, sure. Because I want to. Okay. So I just the way I really kind of made this my presentation like two sections, but I will the first section I will really go through very quickly because I represent at least in my current role as a group vice president and group head of technology, digital technology. Like I'm more from the service side. So instead of me talking more on the technology part, I really thought how the technology gets adopted in the industry and how the business organizations really enjoy using it and what is the real value of investment really we experience. End of the day, no technology would be really successful if it's not really delivering the tangible benefits, right? And one thing really I want everyone to understand is we shouldn't choose the technology and then search for the problem, and we should have a problem first, understand the problem completely, come up with various options and various solutions, and then we should really explore what is the most suitable technology. So one thing like I used to keep hearing from the hospitals, like hey, RPS comes, how do you use RPA in the hospital? I said that should not be the way. We should talk about the problem and see how this problem could be addressed. Then we think, oh, is the RPA is the right solution or not, right? So I really want to very quickly like run through my first kind of set of slides because that's more on the technology, and I'm sure like Anubhav and everyone would have already covered that. But I really want to spend a little quality time on my second part, which is how did we adopt that and how did we kind of get the the real benefit out of it. Okay. So this is like I'm sure like you guys would have already got multiple times as an input why an RPA, like when RPA really is really used. So anything that you wanted to do user interface level, because when the business asks us how the the RPA really helps us, we don't want to give them a kind of a promise that I don't want them to visualize that it's a real robot sitting there and can do anything, right? So it has a lot of limitations and also it has a lot of advantages, but we need to know exactly where we are supposed to really like adapt. So what RP can really do and what it cannot do, I think that the difference we should really know. So anything on the UI level definitely we can do, and we don't need to really get into the API level of integration, especially where there is a problem that the systems are not willing to really change the APIs, both from the limitation on the platform side as well as from the vendor perspective. Then this could be an easy solution. And there is no limitation on the application side, and we don't need to really get into like how the system works, what's the system behind, etc. So it's purely like the front end integration. So that way, I think the most important thing you should really know is when we really run business. I represent a large group of dental lab. We are the fourth largest dental lab in the US, and so one of our labs was using a system, lab management system. They were totally reluctant to really do any kind of handshake with our other systems. So we had to really struggle a lot, and finally we decided to adopt again, RPA. And today our lab gets closed at 8 o'clock, and the next day morning when they come in, all the outsourced products gets received, invoices gets created, labels gets printed, and so next day morning the labels are pre-printed in the printer and it's lying there. So just team comes in, takes the invoices, takes the labels, and puts the manufactured dental products into the boxes, and then they just ship it to the customers. So the entire process happens without any intervention. So this is a real kind of use case, I would say, where either API is not there or the vendor is not willing to really share the API, right? So in case you guys have any questions, I don't know if it's interactive, but you can definitely chat or you can ask me the question. So when do we do that? When do we, kind of adopt that? One is wherever there is a repetition of nature of work, and where there are real, kind of rules that you can really create. And of course, it has to be, if not fully structured, at least you should be semi-structured. It can't be very ad hoc based way of working. And these are the very high level, I would say. But then, in detail, we can really even discuss. But as long as any nature of work that it has a repetition, you have more people involved in it. You want to reduce the kind of number of people, or you want to utilize the time when people are not there, especially as I said, in the night time you wanted to run the engine, and the next day morning things really to happen. It really works, really in the benefit of saving cost of human resource as well as in process automation.
Niranjan, our audience is requesting that you go a bit slower.
So I should go slow?
Yeah, a bit slower.
Okay. Okay, so what kind of services, industry that we can really we can use, at least so far based on the experience of the some of the large service providers that we have in the country. Like one is the onboarding, customer onboarding or client onboarding process, and wherever we have to do the document processing, and the most important thing is, I would say, the data analysis. In again going back to our business, as we said, we have the huge number of dental business that happening. So we get 3,000 plus dental patients coming in every day, and taking some or other services. We have a large number of invoices and spreadsheets getting generated every day, and we got to do a lot of analysis and then make a meaningful report the next day morning. So the business heads would really expect a morning 6 o'clock a report going into them about the previous days, the number of cases received, how many cases are on hold, how many cases have been pending clarity from the dentist, etc. All that analysis today we are able to really automate, thanks to RPA. So data analysis is a huge use case that we should really consider. And so these are some of the benefits. Again, I'm trying to really run through very fast in these slides because you would have already heard it. One definitely a very important thing is the low kind of on-code. I'll just give an example. We were engaging a vendor, and some reason we could not really continue to work with that particular vendor, and then we got to migrate our QuickBooks server, which is the accounting application. And the challenge was when we are migrating to a new server, what will happen to the RPA code that we have got it developed by another company? And you won't believe, just with 1 day of effort, even our in-house team with a little bit of support, we were able to do it. Because as long as you know the business rules, and as long as you know exactly the structure that we follow, I think it was very easy for us to really handle. So the dependency on the third-party vendors were not very high. So that's one of the important benefit from the business perspective. So these are the generally questions people have. In fact, I'd seen one of the most advanced RPA implemented in a lab in San Jose in the US. It's completely very advanced. They go to the level of the entire lab gets ready before any technician steps into the lab. They spend lot of money, but they really adopted. So if you're asking the question like between attended and unattended, there is a cost factor, but you need to know exactly when to use what type of application, what type of licenses, and you need to be able to really like demonstrate the value of the investment as well as the return on investment if you understand the business process. For example, if you say like we engaged two accountants sitting and doing everyday kind of reconciliation of the accounts, and then you say, for example, like 40,000 rupees or maybe 70,000 rupees you're spending, and two employees, like maybe with all the benefits 2 lakhs rupees. I'm just giving a very simple example, right? So if you say like if I'm buying a license worth of like maybe $3,000 and in a year, and one attended license, for example, and then I can really do the return on investment. I can explain you are dependent on two individuals. In case that one employee did not turn on a particular week or something, you have a problem, and this is the dependency on the two individuals to come and do that activity. But it is a kind of a repetitive activity. Whereas I can really automate this with this kind of platform, and this is what's going to be the cost, and this is the benefit that you're going to get it, right? So I think we should be in a position to really explain the value of the investment in a very structured manner, and I think that the business would be more than happy to really adopt it. But I think the understanding that we need to have as a business analyst or as the technologist like using the RPA is when to use and what and why should we use it, and also the exact application of the right tool in the business use cases, right? So not every time everything can be really automated. I will also give an example when I show the case study where we really thought we would do, and finally we ended up doing extra effort when we are trying to do RPA versus the normal automation. So we need to be very clear. Otherwise, what will happen is with multiple failed use cases, the trustworthiness on the RPA itself would fail. So you got to be very, very clear when to automate with the normal technology, kind of software coding and other thing versus the RPA automation. So that's very, very critical for us to know it and then adapt it during our in the business sides. So as I said, like this is the typical life cycle that one would go through. For example, if I'm running this as a business, and if I really feel like I means as a company, as an industry, I decided to use the RPA, then what is the process that I'll go through along with the development team or the technology team? And it's kind of an SDLC, but it's very specific to the RPA. And this is what we went through, in fact, and so typically the governance model of the project, etc. So how we were like really doing the automation in the past and how things really like completely automated now. It's just giving you a brief. I'll get into the case study. Yeah, this is where I can really talk in detail. So how RPA like really become helps in organizations' business objective. In making sure that we achieve those objectives that as an organization that we really wanted to do using the technology, right? So these are the 4 use cases that we kind of considered. Just to give you like I'll take 1 minute to explain the business what we are into. The dental lab means our customers are the dentists. So when as a patient, when we go to the dentist, when we have some problem like where, for example, you need to really like replace your tooth, or you want to really like implant and you want to do kind of put a a bridge or something like that, or you want to put a night guard, and things like that. Normally what happens, the dentist takes an impression of yours, either in the digital using an intraoral scanner or using a kind of physical impression using a mold, and then they send that impression to the labs. So the digital impression comes through cloud portal and people download as an image. It's like a CAD/CAM image. Or the physical impression, they put it in a box and then they ship it through UPS or something. So the dental labs receive that. So there will be an RX. RX is more like a prescription or a specification coming from the dental office saying that, hey, but this is the patient and the patient has this problem. This particular tooth has a problem and the patient color code is this. There are a lot of specific preferences that the practice wants to really communicate to the dental lab. And based on the spec that the lab receives and also the impression, then they create the case in the lab management system, and then they need to really create a model, and then once the model is printed and the model gets really reviewed and approved, then the final the artificial tooth gets manufactured, and then it gets shipped to the practice, and then the doctor really puts that the finished product, the artificial product, on the patient's mouth and replacing the existing tooth, and then they need to ensure that everything works perfectly fine. So this is the complete life cycle for a dental lab. So the biggest challenge that normally we get through is in a day, for example, if a lab gets like a 600 to 700 cases, the different type of specs that we get it from the practice and for different type of products, there will be and missing information, additional information required, and things like that. So when all these things happen, a lot of manual work happens, in terms of the creating the case. And when I say creating the case, you need to basically like book the case in the lab management system, and then you really like ensure that there are like 40 and odd process that lab management system have to go through. The spec goes along with the process. So the case management itself, it's a huge activity. Like creating a 600 cases in a lab management system, it's a huge task. And the entire business works based on the turnaround time. We call it a TAT, like between like 7 working days from the time that a dentist send the case, the finished product needs to be sent back to the office, because the patient is like suffering there, and the patient needs to wait for 7 days to fix his or her tooth. So you cannot really take more than that. That means every day is so critical for the business, both from the return on investment and the business, as well as from the customer experience perspective. So what we really thought is, okay, how quickly we can really automate. So the project that we started and we failed, which I really want you to know, more than the one that we were very successful, right? So the project that we failed was the case creation automation. What we thought, like, we will just have all the RX downloaded, and we, in fact, internally we were using some kind of scripts we have written to convert all the XML files into simple spreadsheet. And then we were trying to really upload the spreadsheet to the back office, through the backend into the lab management system. So this is an internal automation. The in-house development team were trying to really do it. So we thought, instead of doing this, why don't we really engage an RPA company? That's how the whole thing started. We said, hey, this is the spec, and this is the XML that we get for every case, and can you really go and create the case? You won't believe, we spent a lot of time, and finally we found for running each and every case and doing that, and the actual the manual entry or the alternative way of automation, RPA was taking a lot of time. It was so cumbersome, and we could not really kind of deliver it. So we decided to give up there. And then we thought, okay, we never thought that invoicing or financial booking, posting, etc. would be even a use case, but we thought, why don't we try that? And it was quite successful there. So some of our labs are also outsource the business to other countries. So what happens, like when from the US, when they're really outsourcing to India or maybe China or somewhere else, by the time that when they receive the cases back, they were getting an email with an spreadsheet attached about the cases details. We found that there's the next day morning, when the girls come into the lab in the morning, like 8 o'clock or 7:30, they have to download the email, take a printout of Excel sheet, go through line by line, and then see whether the case is really ready, and then go and create the invoice for each and every case, then print the label. When I say the label, that UPS label that you have to put it, and then keep everything ready. By the time that the finished product comes from China or India, then they have to really open the box, put the invoice into that, put the sticker on the box with the label, and then they have to send it back to the doctors. And you won't believe, by the time the cases are ready to go to the practice, it was almost like 3 p.m. on any given day. That means we almost lost one full working day in that. So what we did is, like, India and US are exactly 12 hours difference. That means we can comfortably work in our daytime, which is the night time for them. So today, the way the process happens is, all these emails are automatically read, right? And we know that that email comes from the vendor. Like, we have clearly communicated that whenever they send the emails on the finished system, they need to really communicate to means they have basically they'll copy that the confirmation email to the RPS. We created a common email ID. So the moment we receive those emails, so RPA really picks up the spreadsheet. It goes through each and every kind of case number, like where the cases are ready. It checks the status. then it opens the lab management system. It really like creates the invoice for each and every case, and then once all the invoices are created, it creates a report and submits to the lab. Also, we print the labels for each and every case that it's going to be delivered. So next day morning, when our team comes in into the lab, invoices are created, the labels are printed, and the labels are already there in the the printer readily available. So they just come in, and the way even the printers are kept and the way the labels gets printed are so systematic. They just come, they pick it up, the box comes in, they just put it, and then they send it. So by 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, the cases gets shipped out. That means the same day that a dentist gets it, that means we are able to really save one working day completely for every doctor, every patient. And also, that the two-member team sitting and working, as an extra effort and cost in the US, we were able to really save that. So this is just one use case, and like that, we had multiple use cases where we were able to really use the RPA. And this is the process that how the whole project started. And we have to create the SOPs. We have to ensure that infrastructure is ready. Most of the time, I'm telling you, the project fails if you don't have the SOPs in place before engaging a RPA vendor, right? So as a business, you need to have the SOP in place, and if you are representing the vendor, you need to know exactly how to assist the business to come up with the right SOPs. You may come up with a lot of right templates so that they can really quickly they can give it, because end of the day we got to partner with the industries or the services for us to make sure that the business really works. And so we need to be able to really have multiple round of workshops, because you cannot understand the entire business of dental in a week's time or couple of weeks, but same time without knowing the business you cannot really help them in automation. So you need to be able to understand with a couple of workshops, or understand with a little bit of business process. So there are two type of skill set that I would say it's pretty important. One is as a RPA, as a as a technical resource. The other most important thing is as a business analyst. In fact, in my mind, business analyst plays a major role rather than the the technology part of it. So this is very critical piece here. And also understand exactly how the whole the control points at every in the whole process, and try to really have each and every process. In fact, when I was there in the US, when these projects are happening, I really manually walk the video capture each and every process, from the time the case comes in, they open the box, each and every step I really did a video capturing, because that really helps that we don't miss out even a small thing which would really cause a huge impact on the entire process flow. And we need to be very mindful about the volume and the time. Especially the most important thing is the processing time. And also if there are any dependencies or the prerequisites for each and every task, in case if they say, hey, someone has to approve on a particular point, only then they can really do it, and then the whole the automation gets into a challenge. So I think the in fact, if you really see in this, the first data gathering itself, the output is the process map. So unless you have the signed off a process map, you cannot even get into the development part of it. And then of course the process definition document, which is very important. And again, you need to have the automation roadmap very clearly. You should have all the data collected. You should have gone through the videos. You should have the process map already reviewed. Then the development of the what really happens. And in fact, most important thing is the exception handling, because if you especially if you're going for unattended kind of a thing, if you do not handle the exceptions, you're really going to have a problem, because you just come back and next day morning assuming that everything is working well, and for some reason if it failed, it got stuck somewhere, then it's going to be a huge chaos, because they have to really get the trust that how it's going to really replace a human being there, and making sure that the business happens. So then the next step is of course the testing and UAT and the deployment, how we did. It's a typical SDLC kind of a thing. And so what we really did is we clearly ensured that all our processes are rule based. So it's where I said when they explained why the case entry failed, because case entry also expected additional attachment of some supporting documents, also capturing of the real impression that we received from the dental office. So they are supposed to take a photo of that impression and attach with the case management. The moment that taking a picture and attaching become a prerequisite, then challenge it become a challenge. Second thing was, when we start receiving the cases, it is as good as like people are submitting the cases on the cloud or on a different sources. Then what happens, like especially when we thought of going for an attended thing, what happened, like you have 10 cases, so we you start an engine and then it does 10 cases, then another 5 cases come in, then someone has to sit and then process, generate a spreadsheet and give it to the system, then it would do. So what we really understood is, if you are getting a quantity of work, repetitive task in a volume, then you are trying to automate, then it makes more sense. Like as I said, for the insurance, that invoicing and label printing, because we get at least 150 cases per day to even 1,000 cases per day, but we get it in one lot, once as a complete lot, then the automation really works very well. But if you're going to continue to get 1 or 2 cases consistently, then automation was really not helpful. Whereas you're putting a person, and as and when the case comes in, for him or her to enter the case in the system was more meaningful and faster rather than running an RPA thing. So unless it is a repetitive and quantity is really reasonably good enough, the automation really it's not, doesn't make sense. So when we're trying to see the case creation manually was like maybe 5 minutes or 2.5 minutes, whereas the automation was like an average of 100 cases was 1.5 minutes. But when we are trying to do a batch of 5 cases and 3 cases, it was too much of time. So we have to really give up there. In fact, after spending a lot of time. So the most important thing is exception should be very less, and it should be rule based, and there should be readable input. If the doctor is signing and writing in and handwritten steps, etc., then you're going to be really having a problem. And of course, it's the high volume as a prerequisite. So this, all the 4 points, if you really read in the first line, it clearly says why we failed to do a case submission automation, whereas why we were successful on the other process automations. And of course, we had all the documentation in place. We created the environment, and we created the kind of a proper, also we had the SMEs with subject matter expertise to really assist the developers to really do that. And of course, we clearly gave all this other information. We had this sandbox environment readily available. So that's how we created the environment to go live. It's just going to take 2-3 minutes, guys, just to see how, it's again a sample one, how a typical case entry, when initially we did, how it worked. So it's a lab track is basically, it's a lab management system. It's a dental lab management system. So it automatically like creates a case, just basically it's creating a new case. So basically this is the data that it's reading from the prescription a doctor sent, what product we need to create, and what are the enclosures for the product, which tooth the doctor really wants us to really like fix it, and what are the additional documentation information the doctor asked. Is there any specific preference the doctor is asking? And in case doctor says that, hey, I want you guys to add this material on top of the tooth, and also doctor says that I want a different shade for this patient. So then the case gets created, the case number comes in. But what it happened was, though the case got created, for us the challenge was post creation. There were like a lot of steps that we had to do, and which there were a lot of manual activities, like in terms of printing the RX, and then ensuring that the capturing of the impression photos. Also, like if the doctor says this product, not necessarily the doctor says this product, but then product may be mapped different in the system, etc. So some of the assumptions and manual interventions created a problem for the case submission, whereas all other process works completely very well with us. And in fact, just to know, like during the COVID, one day we were not able to really run the RPA. Then all the labs really started raising a voice. Then only we realized how effectively the system works, because only when a system stops working, then you will know, like people are really using it. So it's completely in use, and people are very comfortable with that. So this is the typical case study that I just wanted to share with all of you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
Thank you, Niranjan. That was a very insightful presentation. So the first question is from Abhinav only. He's asking, does RPA ROI works in India where labor cost is already low?
Definitely yes. So even I think it's the most important thing is it's not always the cost, it's the value of the investment. I think people moved away from the return on investment, and they moved into value of the investment nowadays, right? So as long as they're able to show the value, just to give a simple use case in the hospital industry, right? If, for example, like the ICD coding for the patients, we are supposed to enter the ICD coding for all the patients, right, in the medical record system, and most of the doctors are too busy, or maybe some of the doctors are not very well equipped with ICD coding for every disease. There's a ICD is the international coding for the diagnosis, right? And a lot of hospitals employ medical records, professionals to work in the night shift to ensure that they take all the 3,000 cases in a day, patients' records, and then they enter it. More than the pay, employees availability or medical professionals availability, the accuracy of the data and ensuring that every data happens, it's a huge challenge. And I'm saying RPA can do wonderful stuff there, and most of the hospitals will have very, very accurate records, and it will be quite useful for the insurance and even for the patient safety. So there, more than the cost, I would say the value that it brings is amazing.
Okay, right. So, Niranjan, so when you were saying, when you showed all those use cases, like you demonstrated one use case and everything. So I was just thinking, so keeping especially this pandemic situation right now in mind, that when cases, the COVID cases are rising so high and the hospital workers are very low. So what kind of use cases can you think of right now, which will be really helpful for the hospitals who are actually treating these COVID patients in terms of efficiency and everything?
See, even if you're talking about the printing of the reports, right? So there are a lot of places where you have the manual interventions required. For example, like all the lab reports getting printed. So one of the diagnostic center that I'm also on the board. If you really look, I mean, from the IT advisory board, where like most of the even the staff got infected recently. Even including the head of IT and all. So easily, like the RPA could have done wonderful stuff there. In the moment they collect the samples of the patients, and all the lab reports could have been automatically processed from the system, and it comes to a particular place. So we could have easily automated using RPA, pulled all the reports, publish them into portals, and even print the reports and keep it ready, so that just instead of like three people trying to process the lab reporting activity, you could have dealt with just one person, right? So minimum, instead of having multiple people in the same counter, you could have really reduced to one or two. So it's just a simple use case I'm saying. And even the appointment system part of it, like you are the moment the multiple appointments are coming in, you want to really generate the appointment, you want to generate the tokens. The token generation system itself, it's a huge activity. A lot of hospitals engage people. And if you go to the billing department, you won't believe, like every day when the patient is getting discharged, the billing process, it's a huge task, and there are a lot of people sitting there and consolidating and doing the billing. So it's very, very simple for a system to really go see how much of pending in the pharmacy or the in different process, and generate the kind of report and print all the bills for the patient on that every counter. For example, there are multiple nursing counters in the hospital. You can actually print it on the individual corresponding nursing counter itself, and avoid people moving from one place to the other place. So non-COVID ward people, like administrative team, you can prevent them getting into COVID wards, for example. So all those things can really do it. When they prescribe a pharmacy, and automatically, like selecting the right thing and printing the RX in the pharmacy, you can easily do that. So a lot of very, very meaningful use cases we can think through.
Right. Thank you. So Saurav has the next question. He wants to he's asking about, like, he wants to know about the working model of RPA projects. Is it agile, or is it waterfall, or is it something else?
No, I think there is no one standard way of doing it. It's again, it depends on how the relationship between the RPA team, the vendor, and the kind of what you call these business unit. But in my mind, it should be agile and it should be iterative. So it should be a combination of, like, because uh, you can't just go do everything and come back and show in one day, right? You need to really like go through the process. It has to be iterative process. That's the best way, I would say, like for the process to happen. So You can't go on a waterfall method at all. So you need to go with understand the process, automate, show them, and so it's a kind of a show and do kind of approach.
Okay, right. So Rajesh is asking now, are we using advanced skills for data analysis and accuracy along with RPA? If it is so, what are all additional skills we use along with RPA?
See, I think like the one is definitely in the business analytics part. If you really look at it, I would say like typically let's talk about you are supposed to respond to queries of patients or something like that, or a customer queries, right? So one is typical like again maybe I need to relate to my industry, right? So when we do impression scanning for a patient, it's more like a wand, like or what you call kind of maybe a toothbrush, maybe an electronic toothbrush, right? Keep that. Assume that that is the device that you have. So the doctor basically it takes 30 seconds to really run through that particular wand inside the patient mouth, and then he collects all the impressions, and then that gets converted into a digital file and gets transferred to the lab for manufacturing. What happens normally when the dentist, when he or she does that, and the patient is sitting in the dental chair, and then the doctor assumes that the scans are sent, and then the patient leaves the practice, and after a day the lab checks that, oh, this scan is not complete and some of the information is missing for me to manufacture the product. Then they send the case back to the dentist. The dentist needs to kind of call the patient back into the dental chair, so the patient needs another appointment, travel, take a vehicle, and then park it, and then go through the whole process. Especially assuming that in COVID situation where you do not even go to a dentist now because of the social distancing issue, etc., you didn't want to go to the second time. So what an artificial intelligence technology can really do is it can really in fact we already built that, is it really checks the quality of the scan versus what you really want to which scan, how it should really look, and what kind of information it should collect for you to call that scan quality is good or bad or manageable. And if it's good, then the patient can leave. And if it's bad scan, within 15 to 20 minutes, if the technology can really trigger a mechanism and communicate to the dentist when the patient is still on the chair, then doctor can actually repeat the scan. So we call that as a chair side scan QC. So in this process, a combination of AI and combination of business intelligence, or also natural NLP kind of a chatbot along with RPA can do a wonderful kind of service delivery. So we have done that. So we did the combination of all the three. So chatbot is patient or doctor can just even on a voice chat, press the button and say, hey, I'm sending the patient Anand's case and something like that, and then actually you can create the case using a voice chat itself using chatbot. So we have done that, and then when it comes, the AI automatically works and checks whether its quality scan is good or bad. Then the RPA really creates the ticketing system and sends a ticket directly to the dentist saying that the scan quality is bad, please repeat it, etc. So the entire process, if you really see, you can do it without any human intervention. So it's one of the best use case, I would say, where all multiple technologies can really work together.
Right. Very well said, Niranjan. So there's one question. As you said in your PPT that there is a huge licensing cost of these RPA vendors and everything. So I would like to ask, what is the awareness in the healthcare industry about the open source RPA and adaptation of the open source RPA in the healthcare industry?
See, industry wouldn't, honestly speaking, wouldn't have much information. See, if you talk about a hospital, mostly they attend these kind of seminars or some vendors approach them. That's because when the new technology comes in, the head of the technology or head of the operations, or the if we talk about hospital, head of the business, medical services would never get that kind of an update on the what's happening outside the world. So they are mostly dependent on the vendors or technology partners, right? So there the biggest challenge I would say is assuming that Anubhav runs an RPA company and he hires like 3 sales guys in his team. So the sales guys should have the same level of understanding on the technology and what to say, what not to say, how to set the expectations, etc. Right? So most of the time, what happens when the people go and say, this does this, that, etc., and then they give some kind of ROI or VOI, and then the business starts it, then you come up with a license. For example, when we did like unattended license, for like when we talked about 5 licenses, when we very quickly we were able to take a decision that that's not the right solution for us to go with. We could immediately see that we can put a human resource and we can really easily manage. Even in the US customer model, we were able to compensate with the human beings. Then India definitely we can really do that. So I think even if there are if we are using a open source open platform, how do we package that as a solution and give it is very important. So the industry always looks at the solution. They're not very much keen on what are the different technology components you are using it. But as an end solution, if somebody can take up the open source platform and package it and offer it as an end solution, that would be the most important thing. So industry only worries about the solution. They are not worried about the components behind or the technology behind that. So I would say if people can really take that as an initiative and come up with the industry solution, package that and give that in their flavor. Automation of building using open source RPA. I'm saying that's the way you should really talk about it. Then people will be more than happy to adopt.
Yeah, of course, very well. So I would ask my audience to, if they want to ask your questions directly to Niranjan, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Hey Niranjan, Abhinav here.
Yes, Abhinav.
Hello. Niranjan, thank you for this wonderful session. You really, took a topic that is a bit of more complicated and explained to all of us in a very, very simple terms. It was, even as a RP professional, it was very refreshing to see how simply you explained in a very beautiful manner. So thank you for that, and really, really thank you. Guys, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask.
So when people don't have questions, either they understood everything or they didn't understand anything. So I'm not sure how do we take it, but
No, I don't think so. But I think, I mean, it was very, very clear. Even for me, like being a RP professional, also the view of it was very unique. Uh, so that was definitely, sir. But I think some of our audience is also facing some connectivity issues. I can see them joining and getting disconnected.
okay.
All right. Uh, all right, guys. We are almost out of time. We have like 3-4 more minutes. If you want to ask any questions, please go ahead and ask. Thanks, guys.
By any chance, are they sending me chat? No.
Type in and Anand is taking questions on their behalf. But that is what we keep in format.
Okay.
So otherwise, no. What happens is, okay. So Rajesh, I think wants to know how you can contact Niranjan. It's okay if is it okay if you can probably give out an email ID or something like that?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, you can share my contact details. I'm there in the LinkedIn anyhow. You can search for Niranjan Ramakrishnan. You get me very quickly in the LinkedIn.
Sure.
Thank you, guys. Not a problem. You can always reach me. So not necessarily we need to limit our questions during this session. You can always reach out. I'm more than happy to support. So thank you all.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, have a good night. Bye bye.
So guys, so we are concluding this meeting here. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. I would like to thank both of my speakers and my team, Soumya, Ravi, Sagar, and if I'm posting a link in the chat window, please provide your feedback. And any one of you wants to attend our future events or want to speak in our events or sponsor the event, please feel free to do it. I'm posting the links for them as well.
Thank you, Anand, and thank you. I really thank all the audience patiently, with us for this whole 2.5 hours. And I guess we shot up a little bit ahead of time, but that's all right. I think that's the worth the price to pay for, listening to somebody like Niranjan.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Niranjan's email ID. Hold on. Okay, I got it. Yes, uh, all right, guys. So another 1 or 2 minutes, this session will be live, and then we'll be closing it. Uh, Rajesh, hold on. If you are already there, just give me a sec. I will see Niranjan's email ID and I'll give it to you. So this is Niranjan's email ID. You are still there. Oh, hold on. Just want to Vivek. Yeah, this is Niranjan's email ID. If you want to get in touch with him, you can mail him. Uh, as I've seen, he's a very open person and he'll be happy to interact.
He's also available in LinkedIn, so you can always reach out to him through LinkedIn. So his name is Niranjan Ramakrishnan. You can just search him in LinkedIn as well.
So hold on, guys. Hold on 1 more minute. This is his LinkedIn profile. Just click if you want to. You will go directly. All right, guys. Like the session, please do provide the feedback and share the link with you. And like I said, and just share that feedback link once more if you want to. All right. Thank you, guys. We conclude this session now.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being patient and thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Have a good night.